Okay, boys and girls, here we are for our first YouTube class, and this class will be about hobbes. Thank you for participating in that beautiful way. You gave me a lot of work, so now I have to explain you first how we will organize this class. Because I'm not so clever as a YouTuber, I'm still learning a lot. I'm not able at the moment. I will be in the next future, but I'm not able in this very moment to put any title. So I will give titles to this class in this very ancient and traditional way. Okay, this is our class about Thomas Hobbes based on the reading of the Leviathan, which is a whale. Here is the whale. So, you gave me many questions. I organized them and I condensed them in a few topics. So I'm going to divide this class into different sections, each of them with a proper title, as we did just now. I'm going to read your questions, which are which is a huge quantity of them, and I'm answering to the most important ones because many of you asked more or less the same things as the others. Remember that the content of this class will be part of the Kahoot test we are going to have in the next days. So the first section is the state of nature. Okay? Can it also happen that some conflicts come up because only a part of the population supports the king's decision? Is this not like coming back to the state of nature? Yes, it is. If population rebels, this will be the coming back to the state of nature. So it has not to happen. We have to avoid it. Because the state of nature is exactly a state of permanent conflict between all the social parts in a society. Hobbes said that extreme violence is justified and that every person should be in peace with others only if the other want to cooperate. How can we consider Hobbes as a peaceful man? Because he likes peace. He is simply describing what he thinks is the average nature of people. Human beings are usually aggressive and selfish. That's why we need a strong power. In the state of nature, our selfishness will be the basis of all our actions. We have to stop this extreme violence by impeding people to act according just to their selfishness. Sorry, I'm reading your questions, reading them in a Word file I have on the computer, so that's why sometimes I'm looking outside the video. Yes? Okay? Thank you. Why in his idea of government there is a sovereign authority if everybody can have a right on everything in the world? Because having a right on everything in the world means to fight one against the other. To stop this perpetual fighting, we have to renounce to this right and to give part of our rights to a king. Yes? Why people aren't able to rule themselves, to govern themselves peacefully without a governor? Because we are selfish. Because the all of us are selfish. So we need someone to be more powerful than we actually are. Hobbes says that in the state of nature there wasn't a sovereign and the people decided to organize a civil society with a sovereign. How did they choose that sovereign? Who knows? Probably at the beginning by a common decision. But this is the difference between two different social contracts. We are going to speak about that in the next section. Why should a man have to follow the law of nature? Someone of you asked. We don't have to follow the law of nature because of a duty. The law of nature is the law of nature. We are obliged, we are pushed by nature to act that way because we are humans. A horse behave like a horse, a lion behave like a lion, a man behave like a man. That's all. Why the power of man is dictated only by reason and judgment? Because reason is the tool nature gave us in order to act and to preserve life. How is liberty related with the absence of external impediments? Freedom is exactly that. Hobbes has a very easy, simple idea of freedom. Freedom is the absence of impediments, but Hobbes thinks also that in a civil society we shouldn't be really free. Is Hobbes' sovereign the only way out of the state of nature? Yes. A state has to have a strong power. That strong power must be preferably a single person or a group which has given all the powers we can conceive in order to rule correctly. Hobbes doesn't believe in the divisions of powers in a state. What is justice for Hobbes? This is hard to say. Justice is the way to organize a state, giving power to a strong king, so to avoid the extreme violence of the state of nature. In the state of nature, there's freedom without justice. We have to build a state with justice, even though without all the freedom. Could we say that man and his nature is one of the main themes treated also to explain political theories? Yes. Political theories are based on the vision that Hobbes has about the state of nature. Okay, next section. Next section is dedicated to the social contract. Hobbes said that the sovereign has no duty towards the citizens because they have given him the rights and therefore it is impossible that he violates the agreements. But the sovereign was not chosen by the citizens, so is it therefore possible that the pacts will vile and that he may be deposed? I understand that you were asking if by signing a social contract, it is possible to elect a wrong king. Yes, it is. Because the social contract is divided in two parts. The first one is an agreement. All the people in a natural society gather to agree about what to do. Then they have to renounce their individual power and to give the individual power to a strong king. This is a second pact, or a second side of the social contract. The second side of the social contract is the submission to a king. As soon as you, as a population, submit to a king, this is the birth of a proper state. It doesn't really matter whether the king is good or not, because this is the only way to escape, to get out the state of nature. But the king can be deposed because there's a right that every individual has, is to have a king who protects their lives. If the ruler of the state, who is the king, does not protect our personal lives, we can choose another king. This is the only possible rebellion which is recognized by Hobbes. Some of you think that by obeying the orders of a king, you are not protected. That it can be right, but as we just said, if the king does not protect the individual lives of every one of us, he is not a king, and that is not a state. That is again the state of nature. Some of you asked more details about the social contract. I think I gave you some hints, but I can give you another document at the end of this class. Okay. The next section is the absolute power of the king. Hobbes says that the establishment of a strong state is a solution to the problem of war. But in the case of the people revolt because the state is too rigid and they haven't got any freedom, this conflict created by the state. How does the state solve it? No, this is not a conflict created by the state, because all the people signed a contract with the king, and they decided that to escape the state of war, of all against all, they had to choose a king. So you can't rebel, but in that only situation we said, that of a king who is not protecting the population. If according to Hobbes it was really God who chose whom he ruled, why were the kings elected by inheritance? Because according to Hobbes, it doesn't matter really what is the quality of a king. Just the fact that he is a king reflects the fact that that is a proper state and that is a proper government. He says that one must follow his ruler to avoid the creation of wars in the people, and that one should not rebel, at least that it does not threaten death. I think that it's not always right. If a ruler does something wrong, you can rebel to have a new and more suitable one without having to run out. If I claim for myself that I think that the government is behaving badly, everyone else can claim the same. And that would be, again, the coming back to the state of nature. Why should people be satisfied with absolutism and submission with all these limitations, if they can try to live in a better and freer form of government but still controlled? Because when they were really free in the state of nature, they were running risks and they were risking to die every day. So imagine to live completely free without a state. You wouldn't even sleep, because when sleeping you are under a very high risk. If you want to be protected, if you want to be safe, you have to renounce your freedom. Why must we accept a government even if it is an imperfect and worse one? For all the reasons we said. People could complain just in case of direct threat of murder, but not in case of threat of violence. So then the family's victim couldn't complain after a sudden hypothetical murder. No, they can't complain about the violence of the government. They can complain about the violence of the others, because that is exactly the meaning of the presence of a king. Did he believe in evolution, movement? It's not really clear to me what is the meaning of this question, but I think that he thought that we can evolve into new forms of government without renouncing to the extreme power of the king. If Hobbes was a misanthrope who had no confidence in others, so how could he trust a single person with all the power in his hands in his idea of ideal government? Because it isn't an ideal government, it's the only possible government, giving all the power to a king. Why does he protect these forms of government which he doesn't trust? Or does he believe that this is the minor evil? Yes. He believes that. He believes that a kingdom, a proper king, is just a a minor evil. Did Hobbes even think that peaceful protests were useless for the government? No. There can be peaceful protests by writing something, asking something to the king is something which is allowed. Did he think that hereditary monarchy was a good thing? Yes, it was. Simply because it doesn't matter the quality of the person. A king is a king because he's a king, not because he is a good man. How can we think that he thought that the kings were chosen by God if he was an atheist? In fact, he didn't really believe that kings were chosen by God. He was simply remarking the tradition because he wouldn't like to criticize that kind of political tradition. There were many other questions more or less about this topic. The last one is, shouldn't men try to change their conditions if they think that they might have something better? They couldn't have something better until they are safe. Safety is the only political value. How is the king elected? 3 or 4 of you asked something about that. He didn't enter into detail about the elections because he wasn't really interested in that. He is not interested in this possibility to achieve the right of electing a king because of the reasons we said. Now it's time for a new section. The right to rebel. If we couldn't rebel as citizens, how could have a better place to live in? Now, you know that there is this right to rebel against a king who is not protecting us. But if we are safe, that is good, because Hobbes believed in personal enterprise, in personal activities, and since the state is protecting all the individuals, every one of us can continue doing, practicing the activities they were interested in. How can population or society progress and develop if the people can't manifest their opinion about an essential part of their life, such as politics? How can it get better and improve? Hobbes is a politician who likes a lot the order. All the ordered, respectful form of expressing opinions are allowed. Another section, very short one, was politics, religion, and atheism. You asked, why did Hobbes combine politics with religion if he was an atheist? Why is Hobbes so convinced that people agree to submit to the decisions of the sovereign? They could rebel to gain more rights. Hobbes decided to support a traditional religious view of the kingdom just because he was concerned with the possibility of rebellion by the population. He was an atheist, so he didn't believe in any possible divine support of a government, but he thought that a religious speech about politics was a good way to convince the large part of population. New short section. The role of the Civil War. Many of you asked, um, did English Civil War influence him with problems of government and in writing the Leviathan? Yes, of course. Seeing a king who had been beheaded was a very evil experience, a very bad experience. So he decided to write something in order to avoid this kind of political developments for the future. You have to know that the Leviathan is considered as a literally masterpiece because of the beautiful language, and it is considered as a masterpiece of the civil and political rights in England and all over Europe. Did the Civil War change his mentality? Of course it did. Then you asked something, short questions about other topics. Hobbes talks about the political organization in a city. Can we say that he takes inspiration from Plato? Of course, there are similarities, but there's a very big difference between them. Plato believes in community. So Plato believes that the meaning of a city is a general meaning and consists of gathering people together. Hobbes thinks that the general meaning of human life is individual. So a life is meaningful if it is protected, if the individual is protected. So let's say that Plato is communist, Hobbes as an egoist, a selfish vision of the human nature. When we talk about the state of nature, can we say that his thought is a little bit stoic? If you mean by stoic that he is a little bit pessimistic, yes it is. But he is not stoic when he thinks that the personal entrepreneurship is something which is valuable. Hobbes doesn't think that there is a destiny over you. He thinks that you are completely free to choose what you like and what you would like to be in your life. Which is the thought in contradiction with Bramhall? I can't really remember and consider that that was a detail. Which are for Hobbes the body and the movement. What is the nominalism? Body and movement are elements of his personal materialistic view of life. He thinks that whatever exists has a material nature. There is nothing which is abstract. Everything is material. So body and movement are the only things you have to consider. If you have to think to philosophers of the past, you have to recollect your memories about Epicurus and Democritus. What is the nominalism? He thinks that the language as just a conventional link with things. So, for example, I can call that animal walking on four legs and barking. I can call him dog or cane. Dog and cane are simply sounds. They are simply names. The link between dog and that object running and barking into my garden is completely conventional. Did he have an idea about the creation of the universe? No, because he is an atheist. He doesn't think that the universe was created. Hobbes believed that the movement motion created ideas. So did he believe that people couldn't have abstract ideas about things that cannot be touched? More or less. He thinks that the strongest ideas are those related with material objects. ideas related with abstract concepts are a little bit far from reality. As he identified the first simple elements in a body and motion, so did he also study anatomy? As far as I know, he didn't. But he was in contact, he was in touch with Descartes, who did it. What is Hobbes' opinion about God, even if he is atheist? God is a religion is a good tradition, even though for a rational man, in Hobbes' opinion, it is impossible to believe in God. He became an atheist, someone of you asked that, he became an atheist because he has a materialistic vision of reality. So since you can't touch, feel, listen, smell God, God doesn't exist. What does it mean he shall conceive to be the aptest means? Dereunto, I don't know. Dereunto means to that. So in that sentence, I don't know where it is, sorry, he shall conceive to be the aptest, so the man, the individual, the creature, the species, which is the most apt to do something. Go to that sentence, sorry, I didn't find it. I think we finished. There were a lot of personal interesting reactions. I wrote them down and I'm going to send you them as an attached file on the electronic roll call. Has been a real pleasure to meet you. Kisses and hugs. See you for the next time.